Good afternoon. As at today, April 9th, the total number of confirmed positive COVID cases has increased to 56, with the latest daily update provided by the Ministry of Health. The purpose of this short briefing is to provide context and clarity on a recent measure taken by the federal government in relation to COVID-19. Yesterday, April 8, 2020, the Council of Ministers in their 18th urgent meeting declared a state of emergency. Per sub-Article 1A of Article 93 of the Constitution, the Council of Ministers have the power to decree a state of emergency in various cases and scenarios, inclusive of the occurrence of an epidemic. As we find ourselves amidst a global pandemic, enacting a state of emergency per the Constitution holds as a necessary measure. Since the announcement yesterday, there have been various speculations surrounding the decree, which requires some clarification. To begin with, the context, as shared previously, the federal government has been consistently assessing the threat level of COVID-19 from various dimensions and has been incrementally putting measures in place commensurate with the threat level that has been assessed. In light of the rate of spread globally and the health, economic, and social impact, as well as the peace and security impacts that COVID-19 is introducing, stronger measures are deemed necessary at the national level, which have warranted this declaration of a state of emergency. Unlike previous state of emergencies, what makes this one particularly distinct is the prevailing factors under which it is being decreed, in that the crisis, one, is a health crisis brought on by a virus for which currently there is no vaccination. Two, the rate of transmission is fast and is not visible, hence can be predominant in certain geographic locations over others, or can equally affect all. And third is shifting our normal mode of operations, impacting livelihoods, altering the movement and everyday patterns that we have become used to. This shows that there are a lot of shifting variables and dynamics that this health crisis introduces, which cannot be treated and addressed under a blanket state of emergency, which is uniform over time. Therefore, the announcement of a state of emergency yesterday is a decree to prepare the foundation for subsequent binding regulations that will be set by the federal government, assessing these various shifting trends and dynamics that the virus will entail. The key characteristics of the state of emergency include: one, that the impositions are subject to vary; two, they are binding on all Ethiopians and non-Ethiopians that are dwelling within the country; three, the scope of impositions can change from geographic location to geographic location, depending on the severity of the threat. Four, the imposition can change over time, depending on the threat level assessments. And five, the impositions can contract and expand within the 5-month duration, again depending on consistent threat level assessments that the federal government is undertaking. Many have asked as to why the state of emergency decreed yesterday may be vague, but this is in order to give the federal government flexibility to respond adequately and commensurate with the threat levels that are being assessed. In the next few days, the first set of specific regulations will be issued. They will come into effect and they will also be enforceable based on current threat assessment. With regards to queries in reference to the national applicability of the state of emergency, it's important to note that the federal government state of emergency is binding across the country. The Constitution does permit regions to decree their own region-specific state of emergencies on two conditions, the first one being natural disasters and the second one being epidemics. Nevertheless, in the event of any contradictions between the two, the federal state of emergency supersedes regional state of emergencies, unless the regulations decreed by regions reflect much more stricter measures in mitigating the virus. Meaning the federal government state of emergencies may set the minimum standards for effectively responding in this kind of scenario. And if the regional state of emergencies have much more stricter measures, then that one will be enforceable within the regions. However, regions cannot necessarily minimize the state of emergency regulations, where a federal government state of emergency regulation is deemed much stronger and stricter. Another speculation surrounding the announcement, and which is also requiring clarity, is with regards to why a 5-month period, as the state of emergency decreed yesterday is valid for a 5-month duration. The maximum time that a state of emergency, according to the Constitution, can be reenacted before re-evaluating its need is 6 months. Considering that the current term of the House of People's Representatives comes to an end at the end of September, according to the Ethiopian calendar, a 5-month duration was necessary to give the House of People's Representatives at least 1 month to review reports and performance of the current state of emergency before any other decisions continue. I hope this short briefing provides enough clarity with regards to some of the questions and confusions that are emerging with what was decreed yesterday. In the event of any further questions that do require more in-depth responses, we again encourage our press correspondence pool to be able to send in the questions, and we will integrate them in subsequent briefings. Thank you.